Shout out to our sponsors at IconBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. IconBet, made by the players, for the players. Eye on Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Eye on Icon, the episode where we bring you the news all around Icon. And as we start to expand, we're going to give you news around things that are happening in the crypto ecosystem that we find interesting, that we feel it will bring value to our listeners, not users, listeners. Icon Grapher is with me today. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Honestly, I haven't checked the markets this morning. I've literally just gotten everything ready, come on to record, and no idea what's going on.
Yeah, well, for a while now, there's that fear and greed index, which I've seen pop up more and more, at least in kind of where I poke around, and it's just I don't know exactly how it works, but it's kind of algorithmically goes through, I think, social media and potentially other avenues just to get a sense of kind of what the mood on the market is. And I think a lot of people look to that and they say, okay, there's always those quotes about, when everyone's fearful is when you buy, and when everyone's greedy is when you sell. Some iteration of that. I think there's one that Warren Buffett had or something like that. But basically, people look to that to kind of counter trend the market and say, okay, when obviously people can do their technical analysis or they can do their fundamental analysis. I think another part of the way people try to evaluate when it's a good time to buy or sell is to kind of counter trade and say, okay, when everyone's freaking out and fearful, especially in the context of a broader bull market, which most people seem to think we're still in, even if it's a little bit bearish at the moment. When everyone's freaking out and panicking, that's the time to buy, and when everyone's greedy and feeling like it's never going to go down, that's the time to sell. So for a while now, we've been on the I think in the 10 to 20 range on that index. I think we dipped below 10 for a little bit. It's 0 to 100. So that things are still looking a little sour. I do say that after I don't know if they were connected or not, but last night, which would be about 12 or so hours ago from when we're recording this, when it became real and the process was underway for El Salvador passing that bill, which we'll talk about in a little bit, to make Bitcoin legal tender. It did seem like I think about the same time Bitcoin hit support in the low 30,000s, and even just kind of on the folks that I follow on Twitter, it was almost like a light switch went off, and people who were super bearish, a couple days ago, were all of a sudden getting really, really bullish and excited and everything like that. So I think the two, both the technical analysis of sweeping the lower, hitting those lows or hitting resistance, as well as the fact that there's some positive news development as far as adoption coming out of Latin America. I think those two things kind of help turn the tide a little bit. Now, so we saw some some green candles. It looks like it's kind of the Bitcoin show for to a certain extent. It looks like Bitcoin dominance is going back up, which isn't a big deal by any means. It looks like Icon's just kind of ranging, which is totally fine with me. So that's kind of where we're at as far as how things are now. But hey, by the time you're listening, things could be totally out of date. That's for sure.
That's true. So, did you listen to what was happening yesterday? I thought it was quite exciting. Look, it was a Bitcoin show, but it's very important. It's how it all started, right? We can't just put a blind eye to what's going on there. It is king. It is king for a reason, and this is why cryptocurrency now exists, right, in all shapes and forms. So, what are your thoughts? What was your experience with what was happening yesterday?
In terms of El Salvador,
Yeah.
or yeah, well, and I guess that's a good segue to kind of we're going to introduce a new I guess called mini segment or something like that. Obviously, we go through the Icon news, but we thought we'd broaden it slightly just because we usually in our intro do talk a little bit more broader, especially as far as markets are concerned. But just kind of take two topics to call out. Each week, Fez will pick one, I'll pick one. Just it might be the top story that everyone's already aware of, but in other cases, it might be something that we just kind of find personally interesting that we think is relevant to crypto and potentially relevant to Icon. So we'll be touching upon that. It'll be brief because this is an Icon podcast at the end of the day, but we do think it is nice to kind of shed some broader light and try to make some potentially bigger picture connections. But yeah, so obviously kind of the one that I coincidentally found most interesting is probably the biggest news of the week as well was El Salvador voting to implement a law that would allow Bitcoin to serve as legal tender. Obviously, it's a pretty strong form of adoption to a certain extent. What that means is people will be able to pay taxes with it, and merchants must accept it. There is a caveat that this is kind of something we've seen before, where they say, okay, we're accepting, whether it's I think the state of Ohio did this initially, where they said, hey, you can pay your taxes in Bitcoin, but it's not that the state will hold it in Bitcoin, and same with El Salvador. There's a government partnership with one of their leading banks down there to where it can instantly convert the Bitcoin to cash at the moment of the transaction. So, that way, if you want to go pay, if you want to go to the grocery store and pay with Bitcoin there, they have it set up to where it can instant convert it to cash if the grocery store doesn't feel like holding Bitcoin. So, it still protects those who are more interested in the local fiat currency than Bitcoin, but it certainly gives people who own Bitcoin a bit of an option. I haven't delved too deep into things yet as far as kind of the motivations and underlying things. Obviously, it's gotten the country a lot of attention recently, especially from certainly from the crypto community and Bitcoin fanatics more specifically. So I think they're trying to create a bit more as a reputation as a bit more open-minded, center for innovation. Try to potentially bring in some more technology there. I even saw as the news broke initially that there were some Bitcoin people on Twitter saying, "Oh, I'm going to buy a house down there," almost out of support, kind of that kind of thing. So they might be going down that avenue. But as Fetch was alluding to, it was kind of a cool moment last night, about 10 to 12 hours ago on Twitter Spaces. There was a kind of a live. I don't know exactly how it came about, but there ultimately ended up being a live interview with the president of El Salvador, the one who was kind of leading this charge. If you go to his Twitter, he's got the laser eyes and everything like that. So he's certainly committed. And it was just a kind of cool, spontaneous conversation with the president of the country and a lot of different Bitcoin leaders and fanatics. I was in there for a little bit. I didn't have a chance to listen super long because it was happening kind of late. And then even Jack Dorsey, who's the CEO of Twitter and Square, he popped in and was listening. So kind of a cool moment for crypto. And it's truly a kind of an adoption situation.
Yeah, look, I jumped on. It's funny how the whole thing started. Nick Carter, who's a big, Bitcoin and actually has quite a good mindset and perception of stuff going on. He starts a lot. They start a lot of these Twitter Spaces and started it, and they got the brother of the president on, and next thing you know, the president had come on, and it was all happening while they were in Parliament, and they'd obviously done the pitch, and they'd stepped out, and then the president just came on and was answering everyone's questions in the space, and people were just trying to squeeze in and get questions in, and he was no question was the wrong question. Anything he could get out there, he would. It was. I tuned in for quite a while. I was nerding out a little bit and quite enjoyed everything that was happening. And people asked him from, are they going to set up mining rig stations, stuff like that over there. Was stuff that they hadn't even considered or thought about, but he was giving his views. But at the end of the day, it was all about, we knew this was happening. It was about getting it to pass. And it's funny, when the votes were being counted, he left, but his brother was giving everyone live updates as to what the counts were. Was it going to pass? And it did, of course, pass. So, yeah, quite historic. This is something that was the dream, right? Like, this is what you wanted to happen, and now we've got one country that has adopted it and made it money, essentially. So, yeah, historic moment, I feel. It was good to be part of it. And this brings it into the next topic of continuing our focus at the start when we talk about that market sentiment and stuff like that. We keep seeing a bit of negativity. The prices are coming down. Everyone's quite worried what's going on. But this time, compared to the last bear cycle that kicked in at the start of 2018, I noticed last time we had the same FUD. We had China, India ban, but that's all the narrative was. There was constantly just negative and nothing else was coming. There were people trying to protest it, but that's it. This time I've definitely noticed when we've got a bit of negativity, we've got like Michael Saylor coming in constantly. At any point the worst news hits, he comes in, oh, we're going to buy more Bitcoin and we're going to scoop it up at these low prices and we're trying to raise more money to get it. There's always this narrative that's coming in that's pro in the positive light. And I mean, the El Salvador stuff is that is, you couldn't get any better than that. But there was a bit of a, as soon as that news broke, I saw some news came out of China where they're banning stuff again. But again, it's around the same nature in the provinces. They're expanding it out, so they're trying to block people who are mining without using renewable energy. But that narrative just kind of washed away in all the buzz that's going on at the moment. So interesting times in the market. Very keen to see how the next month plays out. But I think, yeah, those were some key interesting points. And how could we not talk about the adoption of Bitcoin? That is the biggest news in crypto and should be. I find it interesting. Crypto communities are funny. How everyone, Bitcoin's having its moment. Ethereum people are kind of in the background, sometimes making snide remarks and stuff. It's like, who gives a damn? It's all good news. If Bitcoin's getting adopted, it's great for crypto. All crypto, not just Bitcoin. So, yeah, I'm quite on the bandwagon with that one. Okay, congrats. Let's jump into the Icon news for the week.
Perfect. So I hopefully you've listened by now, but if not, definitely encourage you to listen to our interview with Daike Lee, who is the one of the partners at ICX. I think partners with Scott Samawi. He is the kind of the main, strategic lead on the OMM Open Money Market DeFi product, which is coming out fairly soon. If you didn't listen to the interview, I think a couple things to point out are he did give a bit of a timeline as far as when a release is going to come. So he pointed out that the product itself is complete. The code's all ready to go essentially, and it still needs some testing. But the key that they've been waiting on is their partner via Bridge Pay, their banking partner who they had initially contracted with. It sounds like they were just inundated and weren't able to deliver on the time frame that they were hoping for. So what ended up happening is they went out and got a new banking partner. It sounds like the contracts have been signed and that is development is underway. And as part of that, initially the bridge dollar was going to be called USDB. It is now going to be called USDS, which is related to the S being part of the company name that is now the new partner. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Maybe you do, Fez, but if not, I know it's floating around there somewhere. And I guess most excitedly is he estimated they're still trying to get out by the end of Q2, which would put that by the end of this month. But there's a chance it gets bumped into Q3. So I kind of said we're shooting for a Q2-ish release. But either way, it looks like it's getting close to right around the corner. So certainly something we can get excited about as we get our second DeFi platform built on the Icon ecosystem.
Yeah, look, it was good, and I'm glad this part he talked about at the end of the interview, but I'm glad he did and shed some light and gave the community a bit of perspective, because things do happen, and sometimes when we're not hearing, people think the worst, but it's often the teams are running around trying to fix these last minute things that they hadn't envisioned happening. So but overall, yeah, learned a lot, especially if the community's sitting there. They have been asking a lot about Bridge, how that integration will work, what it means. We really quiz him on everything, and I don't let up around the bank transfers and things like that. So definitely tune into that interview to learn more about the platform. Next bit of news we have is IconFi. Now, the token swap, they've said that they're going to create this where you could swap the old ERC20 tokens for ICX if people hadn't taken part in the token swap. So they have launched it. Now, it's interesting. I actually have read the emails. I've had a few people reach out with wanting a bit of help because certain things aren't, per the instructions, aren't playing out. And I, from reading up and looking through it, it's not a simple process as I would have envisioned. There's quite a lot of work you need to do from your side before go the token swap actually happens. But look, at least there's an option, and it's not a case of, well, you didn't take part in it and that's that. So it's good that there is an option. It's through IconFi. There's a process, and if there are users out there and feel a little bit lost, do jump on the Telegram and this is the IconFi Telegram instead of the entire foundation Telegram, and go on to the actual products Telegram and ask, and there'll be people just ready to help you through it. One of the biggest points I've probably found is having a bit of ICX in that wallet currently gives you the icon to click on, and then it brings up some of the options that the email instructions give you, whereas otherwise you just can't find it in the app. That took me a little while to figure out. So, but overall, good that it's finally launched. IconGrapher, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it, when it first kind of mentioned it, I thought it might be just a really easy kind of one, two click kind of process, just based on the simplicity of the app itself. But I just think that, I think they wanted to make it as simple as humanly possible, but it's still just kind of such a technical process where it still takes a little bit of due diligence and some focus when doing it. Part of me does sympathize with those who are kind of frustrated by it, or have been waiting for their token swap forever, whatever else it might be. That being said, there's been almost 4 years, about 3 years now, of opportunity to get them swapped, most specifically in the time when it was super easy to do back in 2018. So, and they initially kind of said, hey, after this, it's, there's no other chances to get it swapped. So they've been generous in extending the deadline. They've been, I think, generous in continuing to support that effort after 3 years. They've been generous in terms of trying to create a mechanism via IconFi in order to make it happen. So yeah, it's a little bit complicated, but I think, there's plenty of people who have been successful at swapping, and don't expect that to change. So just be patient if you're going through that process, but also good to see you kind of come back into the community. Something that I'm excited about, the ICONist, which we mentioned is coming back. They put forward a CPS proposal a little while ago. I can't remember off the top of my head the status on that. But for those who don't remember, or who weren't around when they first came around, the ICONist was essentially, they kind of branded themselves as trying to be kind of the New York Times for Icon, and it was a really nice service in the sense that there was a kind of a central repository for all the key Icon news, and they were very active on social media and getting news out there and everything like that. So it made it very easy to just kind of check in every week, couple of weeks, whatever it is, just kind of see what was going on with Icon. There's obviously a lot of different Icon news floating around in different places. If you follow the right people on Twitter, if you obviously listen to this podcast, you can get a good chunk of it. But that being said, there is still so much out there that, especially as it relates to kind of what's going on in Korea, that it's not always easy to kind of figure it out. Right now when there's news that comes out of Korea, what usually happens is, someone will randomly tweet about it. There'll be an article, but then you have to go to Google Translate to figure out what it says, and then you got to read the rough translation. You got to try to figure out what exactly is going on from, especially if it's a government thing of, oh, is this a big deal? Is this a small deal? Whereas the Iconist got a really good habit down of just being able to kind of give it in a very simple manner. Hey, here's what happened. Here's what's going on. I don't know if they have direct pipelines or better, or they're, I think the people who are working there are actually kind of trained reporters, so they're good at digging into research, processing information. It seemed like they had a good pipeline to both IconLoop and the Icon Foundation as well, so they could, quickly relay and put out information out there too. I think one of the other key parts that's important is, there's been a lot of good coverage over the years of IconLoop things, news developments, things like that. And, I think if you're familiar with the Icon ecosystem, you can kind of look at that and realize, you connect some dots on your own and realize how it's good for, the Icon public chain as well. But what happens is, most of these news organizations that talk about IconLoop don't bother to mention Icon, or they don't bother to mention correct context or anything like that. They almost treat IconLoop like it's its own just separate thing that has nothing to do with anything else, which, it's not always obvious that that's the case, but I think having reporters around who understand that context and that connection, they can make it so instead of the headline saying, Icon Loop startup does X, they could say, you know, Icon Foundation technical partner does this, which should help the Icon, the Icon public chain, something like that. So when the article gets published on Twitter, something like that, the headline very immediately conveys what's going on, and I think it creates a lot more excitement among the community when there's good news that's immediately obvious that it's good news. It's one thing to have good news that you have to kind of dig through and think through and a week later kind of analyze, but to have it where it's kind of put right on your face, easy to toss around, go viral, all that other stuff. That's always really good. So to see them back is really exciting. It looks like they're kind of going to do even more. If they get that CPS funding, looks like they're going to do even more than they did last time around as far as other media is concerned, which is certainly encouraging. So certainly excited to see them back. They did post their first article for a while a couple of days ago, basically mentioned how the Korean Science Ministry is to spend more than $100 million on blockchain. And this is, this didn't have anything to do with Icon directly. I kind of thought about it a little more. One of the things that I funny about 2017, 18 is how many different kind of companies, entities, governments kind of wanted to hop onto the blockchain bandwagon at the time. There was I can't remember how many IBM Hyperledger commercials I saw where they made it like IBM was going to do just blockchain stuff moving forward. Uh, there were companies that would kind of rebrand as crypto companies, and their stock price would go up. Overstock.com being the kind of the most notable of them. So there's always, and so one of the things that kind of looking back that could have been a thing of concern is that, Korea obviously stepped up, started putting all these resources, money towards blockchain development and things like that. And what happened is, there's a reason you haven't seen the IBM Hyperledger commercial since 2018 is because there was a sense that all these companies, they realized that maybe it's not quite where we're thinking it was, or we're not going to use it, or we're not as interested as we were now that the hype's fallen off or whatever it is. So to see Korea, even during bear markets, continue to pump money into the industry, continue to talk about the fourth industrial revolution, which has been a theme in the country, to continue supporting blockchain and everything like that. I found that really encouraging because there is a total chance that as soon as the market crashed, they could have walked away and said, oh, never mind, this is just a fad. We're not going to keep putting resources into this, and things could have gotten a lot more dire. So the fact that they're still stepping up and the fact that they approved another, large amount of money in order to fund this space is really encouraging, not just for the space itself, but obviously for Icon as well. So, I think that article popped up, and I imagine a lot of people were thinking, what does this have to do with Icon? But I just want to put a bit more context on it, and at least that's the way I was kind of thinking through things. So that was a long segment. So, but I'll let you get your input on Fez.
Look, for me, I like that it's not one person. There's a 3-person team on their crew. They're in South Korea, and I think the rest you've called it out. The fact that they can bring the news on that front, and it's not us trying to translate or pester someone to get insights. And even in the past, I don't know if people remember, but I recall watching clips of them showing the Visit Me application, talking to people in Icon Loop, like one-on-one actual interviews, and showing some of the products, how they worked, etc. So I love that, and you could even see in their first tweet I got in their first question, someone had actually asked us on the show to us, IconGrapher. They were chasing down what happened with the driver's licenses that were going to be issued on the blockchain, etc. I used that tweet to actually engage with them and say, hey, it would be great to get a bit more what's going on this aspect. And it's not necessarily what's going on with Icon, just what's going on in the industry with this aspect, because it was announced by the government. So what's transpiring. So I'm really excited about getting that on-ground view of what's transpiring over there. And the last part of it that I like is, and IconGrapher, I've said this to you a few times, I keep saying that Icon has a lot of information, but it's just spread on so many different channels, and apart from the medium, from the foundation, everything else is just, everyone's got their own little pieces. What I'm looking forward and hoping they do with the ICONist, and they have said this in their proposal, is they'll aggregate a lot of that Icon related news onto their site. So hopefully we'll just be able to go to that one spot and read everything they're publishing, and other stuff that's related to Icon is linked in there and leads to the sites wherever they get published. And hopefully, maybe even Iron Icon gets a few posts up there. Iconographer.
Perhaps, I think the there's a lot of benefits to a decentralized community, but some of the downsides is that the information gets decentralized too, and it's like you kind of said, it just floats all around there. So, when the Iconist first started, it was mostly just the foundation that was kind of running the show. I'm trying to remember if they they had to shut down just due to a lack of funding and resources, and the fact that they couldn't necessarily work for free. And I think they had been receiving grants at one point in time, but that ultimately ended. But nonetheless, I don't think they were around when P-Reps got going. Maybe they were just for a little bit. But back then it was almost easier to cover Icon just because most of the news was coming out of the foundation. Whereas when they come back here, there's so many P-Reps building now. There's so many different projects being built where it's certainly a lot harder to cover. I would think, but that's obviously a good thing for the community. More information means more activity, and more activity means more building, and more building means more adoption. So it's all a good thing. And again, I wish them the best of luck, because I've always been a huge fan and want to see them succeed this time around.
Yeah, so I believe they got the sponsorship, because that's part of the CPS proposal to
Right,
put it up, and
right.
and yeah, I haven't checked, but I'm sure it would have gotten voted through. Well, it better have. We need this. um, cool. Next up, we have Balanced. Iconographer, do you want to break down what's happening with our favorite DApp?
Yeah, so Geometry Labs, which has been kind of a contributor, they do have a Twitter handle, but they're not as public as potentially other kind of Icon community people. And they have been officially brought on as a contributor to Balanced, and they've been helpfully thus far. They've been working on infrastructure, which obviously is a bit more behind the scenes, but it does sound like they are working on they meaning Balance is working on their first major update, and it wouldn't be possible without the Geometry Labs. And the core pieces of that update include price charts, transaction history, a statistics page, and a network fee vote plus distribution functionality. So, these are all things that have been alluded to. It would be nice to have, and others have built up kind of, there's a couple different versions of price charts that I've seen. Brian Lee of the Horizon team has a bunch of good statistics on there. There's a Telegram bot. So it's not that there's data not floating around, but to have it there right on the Balanced webpage, easy to find when you're already on the website, clicking around and everything like that, I think that would be super helpful to have some price charts. The transaction history also too, just to know, hey, I don't know exactly what this is going to look like, how much detail there's going to be, but those who are worried about tracking these things for taxes, or just to know over time, hey, have I been making money, have I been losing money, just to get a better sense of this. And you can kind of do that, auto you can already do that through the Icon transaction tracker, but it's a bit clunky. You kind of have to translate. Okay, wait, was this a transaction? Was this was I borrowing here? What was the price of Icon at this point? What was the price of Balance? And again, I don't know if their transaction history is going to be that detailed, but I imagine certainly it's something they can build upon moving forward and continue improving. And then, just the statistics page, just to get a sense of how well the platform is doing. Again, we kind of already have these on third party websites and applications and things like that. But to have something a bit more directly connected to the app is certainly going to be helpful. And then obviously the network fee vote and distribution functionality. Network fee being, there had been talk about activating payouts for those who are staking Balance as a fraction of the revenues that the platform has received. So I assume that's part of that. And then the distribution functionality, I'm not entirely sure what that might be, but certainly excited to see the actual details on that. Any input, Pez?
Look, I think what it highlights to me is, as now we've got these dApps, launching, and we're seeing users use them. The teams are seeing potential out there in the ecosystem. People who have been building for Icon as well, but maybe just doing bits and pieces, or and going, well, actually, the product is there, it's a hit, we need to keep expanding on it, get on the team, help out with what you're so good at. So that's what I love. That's what I've taken away from this. So when I saw that, I'm like, yes, this is exactly what we need. We need joining of forces to make something that's good. even better. And yeah, look, Balanced is just going to keep evolving. I think every week we're going to come to and give little updates. Obviously, one of the biggest priorities in the balance, as Scott keeps highlighting, is the rebalancing aspect, which we hope to get this month. And I know they've been busy working away at it, so very excited with that. But these changes, I know there's a view as well from the team until the charts and everything is kind of live. That technically will be the real poster child of the DApp. Until then, it's not your MVP kind of ready to present to the world. And I agree with it, because in the testnet I saw all the price charts and stuff. The way it looked nice. It added a lot more value and told you a lot more that was going on. As you said, you didn't have to go to different places to source that information. It was on the DApp, on the site, and the different screens itself. So I'm really looking forward to seeing these updates, and glad to see the team getting bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was
Yeah.
gonna say, and I would wonder, obviously we're waiting on it's not a major deal, but it would be nice to kind of see how see balance on CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap. And so I'm wondering if, as they build these out and create the way to harness this data, if it might be able to connect to their API. So it doesn't get mentioned there, but that's kind of speculation might be that this process might help get, fully cement that API is functional and be able to get us listed with price charts and everything like that on those two aggregator sites.
Yeah, good call out. I know the APIs for that stuff is done and we've submitted it. Just taken back at how long uh, this process is taking, because I was even having a chat to Brian in the background, and we were having a laugh. Look at some of the coins that there was this coin called These Nuts. Like, how are these coins getting on there, and we're not on there? So I'm really hoping.
Yeah, well, it helps. There's a lot of them. I think as soon as something gets traded on Uniswap because it's on chain on Ethereum, I think it's the API is already built for that whole ecosystem.
Okay,
So I think
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
it's
Just
automatic. It's like whereas in Balance's case they have to build essentially something
mm,
essentially from scratch. So maybe moving forward we'll get that kind of same, I would say, treatment, but at least infrastructure, but probably not for a little while. Because it would be cool at some point to have every single token on the Icon ecosystem listed
yeah.
on
Well,
on
look,
CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap.
that's really good. I'm glad I had that, made that call out, and you've said that. I didn't realize that. I hadn't thought of it like that, and you're right. Yeah, it's auto default anything on Ethereum. So for us, it's a lot more work to get stuff on there. So yeah, really good
Right,
one.
right. Yep.
Okay. Well, next one we have is Stash. So Reliant Node, just out of what's your famous sentence, Iconographer? Out of nowhere, they've just launched, tweeted out that Stash is live, and I was excited about this. I have to say, I've always been excited about Stash Phase 2, but and I keep glancing over Phase 1, but this is quite cool as well. If you didn't know, Stash is an extension or an app you can get on your mobile, or extension that's like your wallets that hooks on the side, and we go to
And Chrome extension for Chrome,
yeah.
like IconX's and everything like that. But
Yeah,
continue.
yeah, true. Good call out. And essentially, when you go to sites like AliExpress, Nike, various kind of thousands of sites that are available, you shop on there online, and when you ensure it's activated via the extension, you get cash back. So depending, you still get your normal prices, and every store will have 2%, 5%, whatever it may be per that store. And at the end of the transaction, you'll get, instead of cash back, ICX back. So, which is quite cool. So instead of, you can do your online shopping, and slowly you're building your bags of ICX via cashback. And that's what the extension enables. So, um, really cool, really awesome. It's live. People can use it. Like, get in there. If you do a lot of shopping, especially online shopping, it's probably got the store that you shop at. It's got Amazon. It's got everything in there. And this
Yeah,
is, yeah, go ahead.
there's 1,000 stores. So I imagine at least some of them that you would normally shop at are going to be on there. And literally all it takes is you just have to add the extension and create an account and tie it to your wallet. And moving forward, the shopping you'd be doing normally without pre-stash, you can keep doing that. Except now you'll get a little bit of funds back in your wallet. So certainly, I would say pretty no to low risk reason to just sign up and get stash going.
You know what? I'm trying to get them on the show. We are. And if the community's listening, get on their announcement tweet and start telling them to get on Eye on Icon, okay? I want to hear from them. I want to know the inner mechanics of how the buybacks are working, and the guys are working on a ton of stuff, so we need to hear from them. We want to know what they're working on. We want to know the impacts they're having on the ecosystem. And yeah, so listeners, get on there, please. Let's see. Let's see how many listeners we have, Icongrapher. Let's see who jumps on there. I'm going to include the tweet in the show notes just so that people know and can click on it and quickly tell them.
Yeah, and well, Reliant Node's been building a lot of stuff. My Icon wallet, I think, is probably the most significant thing. I know they've got a couple of things that I can't remember off the top of my head, but certainly one of the more long-standing and active building teams around.
Yeah, definitely.
We got another piece of good news. Well, I guess reiteration of good news. Obviously, we're aware that it was made aware to us that Icon 2.0 is basically done. The code is all written and ready to go. Where the key, I don't want to say hold up, but the process right now is the data migration. There are about 35 million blocks to migrate over, and not just migrate quickly, but to do it the right way, in a way that basically make sure that the blockchain that we have is the blockchain that we'll continue to have moving forward on Icon 2.0. We got an update that we're about 29% done with that migration. So, like I said, there's either 34 or 35 million blocks. About 10 million have gotten done thus far. It's not. We're not sure exactly how quickly that's moving. I don't know if we've had a prior estimate, but it was nice to see, and it actually came from Shikamaru. So it was kind of unexpected. He had that information, and kind of my initial reaction is, oh, how does he know? And then if you go look at his Twitter bio, it now says product manager at Hello Icon World, which is the Icon Foundation. So for those who don't know, he has been involved most notably with the Icon asset management team. He'll still continue that involvement, but he also now works for the foundation. So it looks like they have another kind of outward public-facing voice to help kind of I assume, put more information out there, communicate more with the community, and just provide more support and help. And it's certainly nice to see more bodies get added to the project, especially from a more communication standpoint. So certainly big congratulations to him. It's certainly nice to, like I said, certainly nice to see another voice out there, and look forward to continuing to get hopefully more information like that from him.
Yeah, look, I felt this was the underlying news. That when the tweet came out, first thing I noticed, well, it's gone from Shikamaru to TJ, and I was like, who's this guy? And what's he done with Shikamaru? And, this was the first update we had about the migration, and this is what I found funny. And then I saw, obviously, on this Twitter bio, things had been updated. But a few call-outs here. Now, believe it or not, I actually do work in IT for a day job, although very old mainframe infrastructure. And I've seen a few comments around, oh, the data migration's just happening. What have they been doing for so long? Now, even in my experience, I've been involved in certain data migration pieces where we've built a new system and then the data needs to be migrated. The data migration generally does not actually happen until the new system is done, and it's part of this. Many of my pieces have been part of the deployment process, which, I mean, our data was nothing compared to this, but even that migration process went over 4 days of constant, 24/7 work to migrate the data onto the new platform and ensure everything's working properly. So in general, data migration task is quite tedious and can only be done once that product is ready and the data can get migrated to it. So this is normal, and at times I've seen comments and things. I just wanted to, I don't get in there and comment to everything I see, but I like to use the show to give a bit more context to these matters. So keep that in mind. And this is where having Shikamaru on there put out this tweet was great, because this is exactly what I guess the community's also been asking for. We want more details on where things are at, what is actually transpiring, and now we have it. And the best part is we've got someone who has been involved in the Icon ecosystem from a PREP perspective, building, doing things, and now is actually in the foundation as well. So he's seen from both sides of the spectrum and can really offer, hopefully, we between both parties, we can start to see a lot more communication come out. On that note, the other thing I noticed now, I product manager. So one of the comments says was, and I know he listens to the show, so I wanted to talk through it. He asked what exactly is a product manager. Now, to really simplify this. Product managers are often overlooked but are crucial. And to give context is take CPS, for example, or any platform, but I'll use CPS. They could be a product manager assigned to that, and they act between a bridge between the devs and what the devs are creating versus what is actually required to the platform to what the customer's requests are, etc. So they have that overarching control and help drive those decisions. So everyone's building strategically. And that's a very simple overview of it. But I assure you, in many organizations, they kind of try to palm that across to just someone on the side. Oh, you make these key calls rather than actually hiring into that position. But it's one of the biggest mistakes everyone makes. So the fact that he is a product manager, and it's not necessarily this is the only product. CPS was an example, but he essentially that would be his role across a range of products. So we should start to see a lot more synergies between what the foundation is doing and some of the stuff the P-Reps are building that are on the Icon chain, I hope. I envision, these are my views, it's not like I've had direct conversations about it, but generally in the markets, this is what the role is. So we've been hearing they've been hiring, we've been hearing all this stuff. This is it wasn't an announcement, but it doesn't need to be. The fact is they haven't been just saying that. Things have been happening in the background, and this is proof. And hopefully we keep getting more insights as to what's going on with the migration and various other stuff that is helping the Icon ecosystem. I think Icongrapher. Anything else we need to add from a news front?
No, I think we're hitting a little bit of a nice little window coming up here soon. Between looks like it's around the corner. Craft looks like it's around the corner. Epics, which is I think yesterday, Nblaze had mentioned they were probably about 2 to 3 days away from Icon Foundation completing the code review for the scores.
Okay.
So potentially, I saw that in their Telegram. So potentially by the time you're listening, maybe the beta is active. I don't know. Obviously not everyone's going to be in the beta, but I think a good chunk of the core community did manage to finagle a slot in there. So I'm excited to see how that starts to play out. Hopefully a lot of social media engagement about different trade wars going on and everything like that. And I'm sure I'm missing something else that's probably around the corner. So should just be a fun
Project Nebula. Project Nebula.
Oh,
That's
right.
yes,
Right.
yes, the big one. All of them are
Yep.
big actually. But you know
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Good summary, man. Like there is a lot coming actually. Like we keep talking about, and balance has taken center stage, but all these other things have been kind of building, and yeah, okay, really exciting time.
Well, even Balanced almost has like a quasi second release in the sense that that within probably I think it's 2 weeks from now, maybe a little more, they'll hit their 60 days to where we'll see. That's when they kind of talked about, okay, here's when we'll start kicking back the fees.
Hmm.
So those who are staking Balance should start to see some income come in. And also, I think I'm a bit more excited about is when the inflation will start to the numbers will start to drop off as far as the inflation is concerned. So we'll start to see, theoretically, when there's less supply getting out of the market,
Yeah.
should help with price, especially when demand stays the same. Obviously it'll be kind of a bummer because people will be earning less
Hmm.
balance. But for those who have been, holding on to their rewards through this point in time, ideally, as we move forward and there's less and less balance out on the market and less being sold every day, I think we're going to see ideally some nice price action. Again, I could be totally wrong, but I'm interested to at least see that play out and watch those numbers start going down as far as the new balance coming out on the market every single day. I'm kind of curious. I was kind of thinking out loud. I think on Telegram or something like that, basically wondering, with we've seen a decrease in the price of Balance lately. I think part of that's tied to the market, but obviously it's also gone down more over the last. The trend has been more significant, I think, than ICX in the market as a whole. And I'm kind of wondering if there's a lot of people who are trying to re-up their collateral just based on the fact that they've fallen a bit low. So maybe they're selling their Balance in order to beef up their collateral or to pay off their loans or whatever else it might be. So just speculation on my part, something to consider, something I'm looking to keep an eye on. And again, I'm excited to see that that 2 weeks from now those two events happen.
Look, and I'm glad you actually mentioned this. So I very early on when Balance launched and, it went a bit insane, I put out a cautionary tweet. And I said, yeah, it's great, but there's nothing there. There's nothing in the market. Every day more is hitting the market. This is natural. It doesn't mean Balance is worthless or someone is trying to, scam. No, this happens everywhere. This has happened on Harvest Finance, on Uniswap, on 1inch, on all the major Compound, you name it. Any protocol that has done a governance token, either retro dropped or mining program or anything like that, while the mass distribution has happened, there's only been one consistent thing that has transpired. The price of that token has steadily dropped, which means the APYs that you're getting from all this mining has consistently dropped with it. This is normal. It is not some kind of unique thing that's failing on Icon or some crap like that. It's just part of the process. And as IconGraph had just said, we're approaching that period where we'll start to see a reduction, and it won't happen right away, but the lower that reduction, the issuance of the balance token goes, that's where we'll start to see a bit of a shift. And there are other things that will come in play once fees start getting distributed and things like that. People will be actually seeing what's happening and feeling like, okay, actually now I should be hoarding it if I wasn't hoarding it before, etc. So, look, yeah, this is just normal. It's part of the distribution process, and yeah, it's dropped. But you know what? When ICX and everything else was tanking, it was holding steady at $5. So, it's an interesting view you mentioned, Icongraph. It could be, that now that ICX keeps bottoming out at this 88 and won't break that and going back up, people may be kind of shifting the from Balance back to ICX, and the only place you can buy it is on the exchange, so it's having an impact on price, but doesn't make it a scam or worthless or any crap like that. Honestly, like when people jump to such drastic conclusions, it's mind-boggling. But it is also new to the space, so I get it, but I'm hoping the insights do help calm those nerves. What you got to look at the end of the day is it a live product? Does it have users? What's the value of the token? And we've answered all those questions over and over again on the show. So that should help make those calls in your mind. Okay, look, I think that's all the news. One of the things, IconGraph touched on, and we are going to be in the news section, a couple of our call outs, Icon news, and we're going to start diving in once we have some of the parachains that they've talked about BTP connections. So we're going to get Edgeware, the CEO of Edgeware, on the show, and he's going to break down Edgeware much better than the overview I gave that probably wasn't coherent to what he's going to tell us. But once we have that idea and what they are, then we'll start calling out some of the highlights that are going on in their ecosystem as well. Because remember, once we're connected, it's kind of all about Icon. If something's going on their chain, it will impact Icon in some way, shape, or form, because we can get that activity on our chain, vice versa. So it's good to have our heads across some of especially the early BTP connections we're going to be across, to understand what's going on in their ecosystem. And we're looking forward to bringing snippets of the valuable insights going on in their systems as well. Apart from that, IconGraph, anything else to call out?
Nope, I think that's about it. Like I said, just getting excited for these next few weeks here.
Yes, and hey, IconGraph, all of that. I know that people will do this. They'll glance over and say, oh, but they didn't mention OM. OM is one thing. Remember, OM is actually done. It's one thing Dakey said was they even talked about just shipping OM without the bridge integration and decided against it because the bridge component is crucial to everything Icon is trying to build. Because remember, we're not going after the existing DeFi crowd. We're going after the crowd that hasn't experienced it, but just finds it challenging to dive in. And I know I'm rambling, but I'll give a bit more context. So Anchor is another protocol on the Luna ecosystem, right? Now, when I heard about it, I was intrigued. It's giving a steady 20% on your stablecoin interest rate, etc. However, it took me quite a while to decipher everything to use the actual protocol. Now, this is nothing against the protocol. It's just the way it's designed. It was shipped in a way. Now they're looking to make enhancements. But the entire process of even just using it as a savings account or locking up, like we lock up ICX, they lock up Luna to Mint, you couldn't just look at it and start clicking and figure it out. With balances, I felt that was almost the case. I could just start clicking and actually work out what was going on. This is not the case with Anchor. It took me quite a while I was annoying Tony quite a lot as well, trying to understand it. What's this bonding? What's this? What's that? So it took me a while. And this is, me who dabbles in DeFi quite a lot, to understand how this works on another chain and what it is. So keeping that in mind, when you bring it back to everything Icon's building, and particularly OMM is off the view set that I literally look at something and say 15% interest. Okay, I'll move my money from my account onto that platform by an email and password, KYC, click a button, and it's there. Like, that is the goal here, and they didn't want to drop that goal and ship a product, which is fair enough and exactly what I would have been doing myself as well. And now that the community knows that, let's hold out that everything goes smoothly and we get it by the end of this quarter. But enough about that. Thank you everyone for listening. If you like our content, please like, subscribe. One other thing to always remember, everything is just two guys sharing our views of what's going on in the crypto markets and on Icon. This is not financial advice or anything like that. So always remember that. We obviously are ICOnists. We're bag holders. We care about Icon. So we're doing everything we can to bring that news and insights to people who want to know, but not financial advice and anything we talk about in any way, shape or form. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, IconGrapher. Chat soon.
Have a good one.